Hi, and welcome to the Everyday Person Podcast. We're your hosts, Mandy and Kyle.
Join us. Each episode will feature an everyday person sharing their story, the ups, the downs, and importantly, the laughs. We hope you leave inspired and entertained. Thanks for coming along.
On today's episode, we sat down with Juan, who shared his journey with us. We hope you enjoy.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is exciting. I'm happy to be part of this new journey and collaborate with you guys.
Yeah,
and,
it's great.
Have a pretty nice conversation.
So the idea is we think there's a lot of opportunities to learn from everyone's journey, right? There's the ups, the downs, there's the funny moments, certainly the sad moments, both, in our academic journeys, professional journeys. And so we'd love to hear your perspective on it. And really that's the podcast. That's the whole session. So, we really wanted to kick it off and just ask, I'm sure you're feeling some type of way when we asked you to do it. So how did you prepare? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I got the call, so to speak, it was just the initial reaction was excitement. And I immediately went through in my head kind of like, what was I going to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
What were the things that I kind of wanted to share with the audience as far as like my journey goes? So it took me back literally my whole life, through my early years back in the Dominican Republic, all the way through high school, Florida, my first time being in the U.S. And then college, and then my professional career. So yeah, there was a lot of introspection that was happening at that point.
Yeah. Well, take us all the way back. Go all the way back to the beginning. When you began your school, your shift in that space. What just walk us through what worked, what didn't.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little island in between Puerto Rico and Cuba in the Caribbean. And I went through kindergarten, pre-K, middle school, all in the same place, same campus, so to speak. And interestingly enough, it was actually a Catholic school.
Oh my God.
Oakley. Some outtakes here.
It's not the everyday without
Oakley barking.
Everything's all in one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember kind of like the milestones that you go through as a Catholic school. Obviously religion plays a big part of it. So that was quite a unique perspective. From an academic perspective, the main thing that I remember happened in the 5th grade. Because of my grades and things of that nature, I got recognized and I actually got a scholarship. And at that time, I really didn't think a whole lot of it. But, over time, you kind of learn things as you go along. And obviously coming from a single parent household, it was very helpful to my mom to not have to worry about financials and things of that nature. And it was actually rewarding because I remember at the end of that school year, I got the opportunity to travel internationally for the first time.
Yeah.
So like that
That's awesome.
recognition stayed with me for a very long time
Yeah.
after that. So yeah, I that happened in the 5th grade. And then at the end of 8th grade is kind of when I made the transition from the Dominican Republic, and we actually relocated here to Florida. And that was probably, personally speaking, if not the single most life altering experience that I've had, it's definitely top 3. Because I found myself now in a totally new environment, right? Totally new culture, kind of learning the ins and outs. And then from a language perspective, Spanish was my first language. Now I'm learning how to communicate in a new way, trying to figure out what things are appropriate to say, what things are not appropriate to say. From an education perspective, I remember going that summer before the ninth grade, I remember going to the school that I was going to be enrolled in with my stepdad. And, we had to do all the paperwork as a new student and things of that nature. They needed my transcripts from the Dominican Republic. So that was never so much the issue because I knew, my grades were good. I knew that I could go anywhere I wanted to go, but it's just the anxiety of not understanding what the future is going to look like. And there was one conversation that day that I remember that has always stayed with me, between the uh, school manager, whoever the person was at that time, and my stepdad, where they recommended putting me in a program that's called ESOL, where it's kind of like you're a student at the school, but you need special assistance because English is not your primary language,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that came up as an option for me to take advantage of, at least my first year of high school. And I remember very vividly my stepdad instructing the person that wasn't something that I was going to need. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, no,
Right.
I
Yep.
actually kind of wish that I would have done it.
Yeah.
Because I remember that first year of high school was challenging, in a lot of different ways. I remember encountering people that were very patient with me. I remember my algebra teacher and my French class teacher primarily always took the time. They kind of understood the challenge that I was kind of facing. So they always just took the time to help me understand the material and things that we were
Can we go
dealing with.
back all the way in the beginning? You'd said that you were in fifth grade and you got a scholarship or a sponsorship. What'd you say?
Scholarship.
Scholarship. Walk us through what that looks like. What happened?
Yeah, so I was just sitting in class just like any other normal day, and I remember at the end of the period, the teacher asked me to stay behind, and she went through some sort of speech that I don't really remember exactly what the words said were, but I remember her saying something to the effect that because of my grades, I was being recognized and that I should be proud of that achievement because it was something that was very special, and that they were going to call or summon or whatever the terminology is, my mom to come into the school.
Awesome.
And they were going to have some sort of presentation and things of that nature. And I honestly didn't really understand the magnitude of that event at that time.
So
Obviously
looking
later
back,
on,
like,
yeah.
yeah, reflecting.
So that was
That's amazing.
definitely a very, very special time. And like I said, that experience stayed with me and has stayed with me all throughout my professional career. As a professional, some days we wake up and there are challenges that we face, and we feel like we're kind of going on a uphill battle when we're trying to get things done, whether it's a project or you're working with someone. And that just always reminds me that, hard work always pays off, in a way. So even though you don't see it at that point in time, over time, something's going to come out of it.
Yeah. How about you continue to talk about your journey, and one of the next pieces was about your mom being a single mom. Take us through that.
Yeah, so my mom and dad separated when I was maybe like a year old. And growing up, my mom always made me and my brother a priority in her life. She's a doctor. She's a pediatrician, so she didn't always have the time to dedicate to us directly, but she always made sure that we had everything that we needed.
Fantastic.
And in the times that she could be involved, she was always very involved and very, very
good.
present. I have so many memories of just me and her doing things like every other mother, parent-child relationship usually has. But like the main thing that I always remember from that time period is that she always wanted us to be engaged outside of school. She didn't want us just coming home from school. So in the Dominican Republic, the school environment itself is actually very different. We only go to school from like 8 to 12:30 noon.
Wow.
So we're usually home by like 1
Yeah.
1 p.m. And usually it's tradition, for you to sit down as a family and have lunch and everything like that.
Really? Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. So the parents actually come home from work. We all eat. They have like what we call a siesta, which is just like a nap.
Very interesting.
in, the
Okay.
in the middle of the day. So that's
Good
actually
explanation of siesta.
that's actually very, very nice. But obviously after that, she would have to go back to work, and she didn't want us just sitting at home doing nothing. So she would always have us participating in some sort of extracurricular activity. Like for example, I did swimming, I did art classes, I took piano lessons, I did a whole bunch of team sports. Tennis primarily was the activity that I participated in the most as a younger child, and I still do to this day. So I remember her like on the weekends specifically, even though that was her free time, to do things for herself, because during the week she was always busy as a doctor. On the weekends, she would also actually take the time to travel with me to tournaments and lessons
wow.
and things like that. So she was always just very, very invested, very involved in everything that we did, even though she wasn't always there physically 100% of the time. So I always appreciate that. I'm very grateful for everything that she has taught me just by example, not even with words or things of that nature. Just me watching her as a child, it's very rewarding.
Amazing.
Pretty big role model. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then bringing that over into school, having those people that just took you in, like you mentioned, your teachers. So yeah. It's great that you had, those role models along the way, but especially your mom.
Yeah.
Mommy turned around.
Hello.
But
So
the title of the podcast is Everyday Person. So
yes,
everyday person's got to go through it.
Yep.
I mean, this is everyday life. Doesn't get much more everyday than this.
It's true. It's true.
Jumping back, I think part of your journey, you shared that you made the move from the Dominican Republic to the United States. Just take us through that.
Yeah. So I don't remember the exact moment that I was told that we were relocating to the US. It came when I was in the 8th grade. That much I know. It came somewhere in between the end of 2002 and the beginning of 2003. And I was familiar with the United States because I had at that point traveled a few times to Florida and New York City, having family in those places. So I was familiar with the whole concept, though. There's a bigger world out there. It's not just this little island community that I'm in right now, right? There are other people out there in the world that I don't know anything about. So I don't know that I understood like the magnitude of what that decision entailed for me personally in my life. At that point, I was like 12 years old. So I had gone through some of those development years that you go through as a human. But like I didn't really understand the impact on my future years at that point. So there was a lot of excitement. I'm like, oh, it's a new country, new people, a bigger house or a bigger yard, or I can have a dog or whatever it is, So things of that nature were very exciting. But I remember as it got closer and closer to the actual date of us leaving the Dominican Republic and coming to the United States, like there was this heaviness on me that was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the last day of school, it was a mess. Like emotions were
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
running in all places, all directions, and like my friends at that time, like we just didn't know how to be on that day. Lots of tears,
Mm.
lots of goodbyes, lots of good luck. We'll see you again. You have to come visit. You know, all the typical.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you stay in touch with any of them?
yeah, we remain in touch. We actually have a WhatsApp
Awesome.
group that we kind of
Yeah.
communicate with every once in a while. You know, people send random stuff, happy birthdays, and 20 years ago, this is what we were
How
doing.
cool
Things of that.
to keep in touch with those
Yeah,
people.
so we do stay in touch, and I still go back to the Dominican Republic every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I do see
Okay.
some of them.
Okay.
Not everyone, because you know everyone kind of goes in their own journey. So not everyone is around, but when we do have that ability to kind of get together, we try to get together. So that is nice. But yeah, so the day actually came, last day of school. We've parted ways. I think we were still in the DR for a couple of weeks after that, just to get everything sorted and you know packing and all of that stuff. But then I remember getting on the plane. I remember, and there's actually a video of this that my stepdad recorded. I remember us landing in the airport in Orlando, me, my mom, and my brother, and coming out of the security area. My stepdad is recording us, and you can see the excitement on my face.
Cool.
Like it's just there's this smile that I don't know where it was coming from,
Yeah.
but it was just this very genuine like smile, this joy. So yeah, I mean, you know, that was actually a big turning point in my life. And again, at that point in time, I didn't really understand what it truly meant. But now, sitting here with you guys as a 34-year-old, looking back, I don't really know, and I don't really like to think about what would have been or what could have been if I had stayed in the Dominican Republic versus coming to the U.S. But I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have had in my life because of that move, because of everything that I am today, because of everything that I have today. Because you know, my life probably would have looked a lot different if I had stayed in the Dominican Republic. So
Yeah. How about the differences between the schools? Was it a complete shift? Did different teaching styles, different classroom setups, different kind of everything?
So like I said, it was a Catholic school in the DR. We were taught, part of the curriculum was taught by nuns. The schedule was different. So again, just half of a day versus in the US, I think you go from 9 to like 3 or 4 p.m. sometimes. Um, the other thing that was different is that in the Dominican Republic, we didn't change classrooms. So we walked in at the beginning of the day. We all had designated desks that you sat at, and that was your desk for the whole day. Actually, for the whole school year.
Wow.
Right?
Really? Wow.
So the people that changed classrooms were the teachers. But as a student, you just stayed in the same place all day long. And I actually went to this like middle school through actually pre-K. There are pictures of me as a little person in pre-K with the same person that I went to school with in the 8th grade.
Wow.
So I mean
Cool.
that just it's just mind blowing. I mean, some of the relationships that I developed because of that were just very, very I'm just grateful for that. Another thing that was different is the curriculum itself. I remember my first year of high school here in the US. We were kind of rehashing a lot of the things that I had already covered in the 8th grade before I came over. And maybe that was a blessing in disguise to a point.
Yeah.
Because again, I was in a new country, new culture, new language.
Mhm.
I was having difficulty understanding the teachers and following, what they were teaching me. So again, in a way, that was a blessing, because even though I wasn't always understanding what they were saying, I was understanding what was in front of me because I had already covered it to a degree. So that first semester, that's probably what saved me from getting all F's.
Yeah.
To be honest, when I
Because
you
you'd
know,
already
having
seen
that foundation from 8th grade. So so it was all self-taught. English was all self-taught going to school, or did you utilize anything to?
Yeah. So prior to coming over, my mom, again, going back to the point of her always wanting us to be involved in things outside of school, we had taken some lessons.
Okay.
Like not private lessons, but just lessons that kind of taught you the basics.
Okay.
So I knew how to have a basic conversation with someone. I knew the basic terminology, you know, good morning, where's the bathroom?
Yeah.
I'm hungry, things of that nature. And then I learned a lot through music.
Cool.
I remember one of the most memorable experiences that I've had with my mom was actually getting to learn English together. We would go to this education center half an hour from where we live, and it was maybe like once a week or something like that, for a couple of hours. But part of the lesson plan was listening to songs, English songs, and they would have the lyrics, you know, printed out on a piece of paper with fill in the blank spaces. So it was just very it was at that point in time, it was like a game to me.
Cool.
It's like, oh, look, I'm getting to play a game with my mom, you know? So I was able to learn a lot of that dialect by doing that. So that was actually a very nice experience that I always look back very, very fondly with my mom.
That's amazing.
Something that we shared.
Yeah.
So if you can reflect on whether it was school in the Dominican Republic, school in the US, just what worked well? Like overall, if somebody else is trying to find inspiration from your journey in that space, what worked well? What would you say is like some of the high moments in terms of just for you personally, what worked?
So when I look at my journey in the school system in the Dominican Republic and think about what worked well in that scenario, I would say that probably the relationships that I was able to develop with my classmates. I like that fact that you kind of have like a home base. I know here in the US, it's kind of like a locker room system where you put your stuff in your locker room and you just kind of migrate from one classroom to the next. I think as a student, having that home base where you know that you're gonna be at for the duration of the class day, it kind of gives you that peace of mind that like, okay, I can breathe, I can take my time. You're not always just kind of like rushing from one
to the
place,
next
place to the other. So I think that kind of allowed me to spend more time getting to know my classmates, right? Getting to build those relationships with the classmates, getting to know who these people are that are around me, and not just be so focused on, okay, I got to get this test done, or I got to get this quiz done, or I got to go to the other class that's way across campus, or whatever it is, right? So I think that was one thing that definitely worked well for me at that.
And so you would encourage others to really prioritize relationships, develop the relationships, grow them, talk to people, get to know them.
Yeah, I mean, even as you get older, you'll find that, especially like in college and maybe later on in your high school career, that you're going to be doing a lot of group projects, right? So not only knowing one or two people in the classroom, but knowing 10, 15, 20 of them gives you better options as to who you want to be paired with in that group project. So you know who everyone is,
Mhm.
you know what their weaknesses or their strengths are academically speaking, right? So you can kind of use that to make those determinations, and just it helps you collaborate better with everyone else,
Yeah.
with your environment
Yeah.
as a whole.
Yeah, there's so much consistency in that structure for sure. Like that's something that I never even realized was a thing. So that's
Mm.
pretty.
Yeah, and
That's
like
pretty
even
cool.
just having this conversation with you guys, it's bringing back all these memories of us working together as a group, right? And there were a lot of different jokes throughout the classroom, because again, we knew who everyone was, we knew everyone's personality, we knew what they all could or could not do. So like there were always these running jokes, as you do with schoolmates, like that's the jokester, or you're gonna have to carry them, or you're gonna have to do
Why'd you
a
point in
lot
my
for
direction?
them. So it just helps bring that to light a
Yeah.
lot better.
Okay.
So, yeah. And stability, it gives you stability.
Yeah. How about on the other side, the things that really, what didn't? What was like the moment that you're like, that was a terrible decision. I shouldn't have done that.
The biggest regret that I have from that academic period was, so on the 8th grade, at the end of eighth grade in the Dominican Republic, there's this it's kind of like a state requirement where you have those standardized tests
Mhm.
that everyone kind of has to take.
Mhm.
We have something similar in the Dominican Republic that you have to take at the end of 8th grade if you want to go through high school and study like college level courses. I obviously, because of the move, was not able to take those tests. So when we made the decision for us to relocate to the US, me knowing that I didn't take those tests, that I wasn't going to take those tests, also meant that I could never go back to the Dominican Republic to study. Right. So that was kind of like an added layer of anxiety and pressure.
Mhm.
Even though I didn't really felt it, because I didn't understand the impact of that decision at that point. But, if I had moved to the US, and let's say after the 9th grade or after the 10th grade or even after high school, I wanted to go back to the Dominican Republic to study and be a professional, it would have been a challenge. It wouldn't have been like I would have had to do the 8th grade all over again, but it would have been a challenge. So I think that was one thing that I regret not doing. I think from the high school years, some things that I could have probably done better at would probably involve like all those honor classes and AP classes that are offered to students. Had I known the benefit of taking those courses and what it would have meant when I got into college, I probably would have pushed myself a little bit more. But again, new environment. My mom didn't understand the school system in the US. My stepdad didn't understand the school system in the US. I probably could have gone to my guidance counselor a little bit more and had some of those conversations. But yeah, that's probably
good advice.
something
Yeah,
that,
that's good.
that I would have pursued if I had understood the magnitude of those decisions. One other thing that actually worked well from my perspective, as a high school requirement, as you guys know, you have to take, I think it's 2 years of a language. I'm not sure if it's still 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Right. It's been a while for all of us. That was a requirement that I was aware of. I could have taken the easy way out and just taken Spanish again, because again, that was my primary
Did you do
language.
French?
I took French.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same.
And I am very, very glad that I made that decision, because again, that was one of the teachers that first year of high school
Oh,
really
right.
took the time to get involved with not just me, but like her whole classroom, you know? And I could really tell that she cared for her students and she
Yeah.
cared about what she was teaching. So that the fact that I got to learn French was just kind of like an added
Awesome.
bonus. So that was one thing that
I didn't know we had that in common. Actually, my story related to what changed my kind of academic career to take the AP and to take the honors classes actually started because of my language teacher, Spanish I took. And she asked us at the beginning of the class to raise our hands if we were doing, I don't remember, some sort of class. And I told her that I wasn't. And just through that journey, she actually got me signed up. You know, it was a whole journey to get signed up, but I couldn't believe that was a pivotal moment in my Spanish teacher's class. It was wild. So
yeah, I mean,
I'm thankful for that.
Teachers play a big part of any student's development.
Yeah.
Sometimes inadvertently, sometimes on purpose, but they definitely have
Yeah.
an impact. So
Yeah.
Awesome. So we've spent some time talking about, your younger years in high school. So can you bring us through some of your, college experiences and your college journey?
Yeah. So I remember kind of towards the beginning of my senior year in high school, what they were going to study. And again, not truly understanding everything at that point. It didn't seem like that big of a deal to me. But as it got closer and closer to the end of the year, I kind of had made up my mind that I was going to move away from home. Uh, Being in Florida up until that point for 4 years, I just kind of wanted to see what else was out there in the United States and just kind of explore a little bit more outside of Florida. So that was kind of where my mindset was going. From an academic perspective, I was also kind of planning to study computer science. I've always been pretty good with electronics. I've always enjoyed working with computers. Um, so I kind of thought, that would have been the ideal path for me. My mom was a little disappointed because she actually wanted me to study medicine, given that
sense.
she was a doctor.
Yeah.
That was kind of what she was always pushing me and my brother to study, to kind of like take up the mantle when
Right.
time came for her to retire. So that was always the conversation between us. But I always told her, like, I just don't see myself in that environment. Again, given that she was a single parent, she was always working. They would page her at all times of the day, and I just saw like how much it took out of her and the time away that she spent from us because of that profession. I just didn't want to do that for myself. But as life usually does, uh, there was something that happened my senior year that kind of changed my whole trajectory of where I wanted to be after high school. So my brother passed away in January of 07. Because of that experience, I kind of decided that it wasn't okay for me to be away from family, especially my mom. Just kind of wanted to stay close to her.
Yeah.
In the event that anything, came up or she needed something or just for support, right? I just wanted to kind of stay close by. So because of that experience, I decided to stay in Florida for college. We toured a few universities. We actually went to Jacksonville. I remember driving into Jacksonville and telling her, you know what, I don't like this city. I don't like this environment. Let's go back. So we didn't actually even make it to the school. But then we went to one of the schools in Tampa, and I had already spent quite a bit of time in Tampa because we have family in that area. So we went to one of the schools there. We toured. I did the whole new student orientation program that they had, where you actually stay on campus, for the night and things of that nature. And I just enjoyed it. So I'm like, you know what?
Mhm.
They've already accepted me. Let's just do this. So I just decided to go there. I remember the first day of school of my freshman year. Obviously, you had already picked your courses and things of that. So I already had my schedule. I was living on campus, had already met my roommates and all the other students on that building. But my most vivid memory of that transition period was the first day of college of classes. I remember walking into one of the courses, and I think it was physics or conceptual physics or something of that nature, something that was sciencey, right? That's kind of the name of my degree. And I remember sitting down. It was like an auditorium type of class setting, and teachers started the lecture. Students were all kind of just hanging around the auditorium, paying attention, obviously. And I'm just sitting there and I'm listening and I'm there, but like my mind is just not there, right? And I think as far as anxiety goes, that was the first time that I ever remember feeling anxious.
Okay.
And I sat down in their office and just literally just told them, okay, so I'm currently enrolled in the computer science degree program. This is not going to work. This is not what I want to do. Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
We had a conversation. What did I enjoy working with? What kind of environment did I want to work in? And things of that nature. And then at the end of the conversation, it was just the main thing that came out of it was a program that's called Managing Information Systems. So I looked that up. I kind of reviewed the curriculum, saw what kind of courses were part of the requirements. Public speaking was one of them. There were some program development type of courses. There was a combination of business and computer, like not so much engineering, but like computer systems. So I like that combination, that play of the two worlds. So I'm like, okay, well, I think this is gonna work. So at the end of that was the decision that I kind of stuck out with.
Great.
And all the courses thereafter were just enjoyable. I, did pretty good in the majority of them. There weren't any big challenges or things of that nature. But because of the transition between the degrees, that first semester where I had already picked my schedule was kind of a wash. So I still had to go through those courses that I had already picked. And then my new curriculum would start the following spring semester. So it didn't really set me behind, but it was just kind of like, okay, well, I guess just got to go through this and get it done. And then
and now take us to your professional journey, right? When you reflect on it as a whole, what just right off the top, what were some of the highlights? What jumped out?
Yeah, so I guess it's important to note that I've only worked for 4 companies. I've worked since I was maybe 15, 16 years old, and I'm 34 now. So I think that's pretty impressive in my mind. Pretty proud of that, actually.
Yeah, great.
So my first job was at a fast food place. I think that's pretty common as a teenager. And the only real big thing that I got out of that environment was just teamwork, right? Everyone's kind of working hard to get things done and keep things running and be as efficient as possible. So that environment taught me a lot about hard work and just, being consistent, being dependable, right? Because everyone kind of depends on you to be there when your shift starts and support everyone else while you're there. So that was one thing that I got out of that. And that was back in Ocala before I moved away from college for college. Once I got to Tampa, my first job was actually my third year of college, and it was in a sub shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually worked there for 3 years.
Damn.
While I was working at that place, I also got a job at a kind of like a computer electronics place. And that was probably my least enjoyable work environment because it's very sales oriented, and I just don't have that type of personality. Even though it was electronics and I enjoy working with computers and things of that nature, and I enjoyed talking to customers about computers and helping people decide what kind of computer they wanted to get. At the end of the day, it was still like a very sales oriented environment, and I just didn't enjoy that as much. So again, a learning experience. So I'm thankful for that. And then towards the end of my college career, I got an internship opportunity in a business center supporting a local to the Tampa Bay area cancer hospital. And it was an opportunity to kind of familiarize myself with the environment that I was going to be working. At that point, I was familiar with the progression after college as far as like your job goes, like where you're wanting to be working at. Obviously, you have a college degree now, so you have a lot more opportunity when it comes to that. So I did that internship for like maybe three or 4 months. While I was doing that internship, I got to learn a lot about computer systems and like real world applications versus like in your courses, you're going through exercises that may not always apply to what you're actually going to be working with.
That hands-on is just so important.
Right.
How did you get involved in the internship?
So I had a family member that worked there.
Okay.
So they actually got me an interview with one of the department heads that they collaborated with.
Awesome.
So I still had to go through the proper, interview process and all of that fun stuff. Sure. And I wasn't very excited, to be honest with you. There were some things that I found very interesting and I wanted to kind of like learn more about it. But there were a lot of things where I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I don't know that this is actually what excites me or what I want to be doing long term. So 3 months into that internship, the same person that brought me in came up and didn't really offer me, but just explained that there was an opportunity to work at the actual hospital.
Wow.
So not in the business side of things, but like in the actual hospital with patients, and asked if I was interested in something like that. And I told them, sure. I mean, it's an experience, so why not? I'll go for it and see what comes out of it. So I went through the proper interview process. They offered me the job. I worked as a patient service representative. So basically, you're like a front desk clerk at the clinics within the hospital, and it involved a lot of interaction with patients. And the single most rewarding experience for me ever as a professional was getting the chance to work with cancer patients directly.
Wow.
Before I took the job, I remember being hesitant about that exact same environment because, it's cancer, it's emotional. I understood some of the emotions that patients may be experiencing while they're going through that journey. So I wasn't really sure, being 20, 21 years old, if I was mature enough to deal with that, right? To handle that, to help someone that's going through that journey. So I was a little hesitant, but again, I just decided to go for it. But yeah, that was a very rewarding and humbling experience because it kind of, my expectations did not really align with what I truly experienced, because at the end of the day, these people are dealing with cancer, but they're just, they're pushing through. So
Mm-hmm.
it taught me a lot of that fortitude that they had,
Yeah.
that they're willing to just go through the experience and deal with what they have and just be grateful for what they have and just hope for the best.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
wow.
up until this point, that has been probably the most rewarding professional experience that I've ever had. And I did that for like a year and a half. And then after that, I became a system trainer. So I went kind of back into that IT environment, and I was training people that were actually doing the job that I was doing, how to use the systems that we had in place to be able to assist the patients in whatever they needed, whether it was checking them in for their appointments, scheduling, dealing with some of the things that the providers in the back of the house would have, struggles with. And then things just kind of escalated from that point forward. I became a system coordinator, where I was kind of like a liaison between IT and the operational side of the house. And that was actually rewarding as well, because a lot of the terminology that I had gained from being in the clinics, I was kind of able to understand that terminology and apply it from an IT perspective.
Right.
So some of the things that a clinic manager says that they need, an IT analyst may not be able to understand it or visualize it.
But because of that experience, you were able to bring
because of that experience, I was able to translate it for them. So they were able to get things done for those clinics. And then because of that experience, I was able to become an analyst, and now I work primarily remote. And I do miss being physically in the hospital environment, because sometimes I kind of feel disconnected from the mission that, we're all trying to provide the best care that we can for the patients. So just being on site, it was always a reminder of that, and it just kind of helped me stay engaged and, kind of push through and
I absolutely agree.
appreciate everything that I have.
I agree. Yeah.
How about broadly though? So, it sounded like there's some key decisions made around opportunities and big shifts, whether it was from, a fast food space that you really, you had to do, go through your college journey, but then to make a shift to work at a hospital, to then make a shift to work in the IT space. Just, is there a lesson there, or even just a general approach that you took that maybe some were better than others? Or what do you think about that?
I personally think that I got lucky with my internship opportunities. Again, I wasn't fully aware of what I needed to do in college to kind of set up myself for after college. After I was done with my college degree, I wasn't really prepared for what that looked like. So when I did get the opportunity for that internship, I just kind of took it because I didn't have anything else set up. So I think, and I'm sure students nowadays, not everyone, but the majority of them, they do their research. They are better at doing their research while they are in college, right? To set up those opportunities. And if you are not doing that, then that's something that I would advise students to do. Colleges have a lot of resources available to students for that life after college, right? Whether it's your academic advisor that you can go speak to, or even your fellow students, right? Having that conversation. Okay, well, what are you looking to do after college? And then things just come out of those conversations. But just having some sort of plan as far as like opportunities go that are gonna be guiding your journey after college goes. And again, I feel like I personally got lucky because I wasn't prepared. I can think back to my senior year of college, and I remember that I wasn't really doing anything outside of the classroom. Everything that I was doing was just in the classroom, but
Yeah.
outside of the classroom, I wasn't in any um, like societies or in
Mhm.
any groups. I don't know what they call them, but I know they're there in college. So I would just advise people to just get involved, get engaged, know your resources,
Yeah.
and just do your research.
That's good advice. Anything else broadly that you think would be helpful for others to know? Like through your journey, what advice you'd give them
I think,
besides getting lucky?
yeah, I think the biggest thing that I can tell someone going through that time period, your early 20s, you're looking at your life in the grand picture, the next 10 years, the next 15 years, the next 20 years, um, is that having ambition, having dreams, pursuing goals, all of that is okay. And you totally should go for that. You should totally be pursuing that. That should totally be a priority in your life. However, it should not diminish or detract the things that you already have in your life at that point in time. I feel like everyone, as a human being, that's all just kind of part of our DNA, to always just want more. What else is out there? What else I can do? What else can I get out of that? But I think everyone should always take the time to just enjoy the things that they have in the present, their environment, and appreciate the day-to-day experiences that they're going through, because sometimes you're not gonna experience that again. So ambition is good, having goals is good, pursuing your dreams is good, as long as it doesn't diminish what you already have.
Yeah. And I see a huge connection there across your journey. We started today really talking about, the relationships in your with your schoolmates, and then also appreciating all the things that you shared about your mom and your relationship with her, and then just to, to align with your professional space, that while you still grew, you still took on new opportunities, that those were still foundations for you. So,
Yep, front and center.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, I mean, this has been a great conversation. Thank you guys for the time. Thank you for the space. And to whoever's listening and watching, I just hope that they got something positive and something that's gonna help them in their journey.
Yeah.
So thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Juan, for joining us
Thanks, man.
today.
Yeah.